Leah, welcome to Beyond the Inbox. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Can you tell us about your journey into candle making and how you came up with the concept for Mythology Candles?
Yeah, well, it started in my kitchen like many other entrepreneurs. They're making physical products. It starts in the kitchen. In my case, it actually started with music because my other career is I'm a singer songwriter in the symphonic metal genre. So I was doing a crowdfunding campaign and I was trying to think of ways I could make the listening experience for my fans more immersive. And that's when I got the idea of candles, like scent, combining scent with, listening to tracks and trying to create almost like a scene, like a scent experience as you're listening to the music. So I thought, candles would be really great and it would be really special for my fans if I handmade them, hand poured these myself. And so for me, that was the beginning of a product development journey of just learning product development. And as I did this and I created these scent designs for for the music, I found out I kind of had a knack for it and I was pretty good at it. So and, it's kind of artsy fartsy, so it worked. And then I did the crowdfunding campaign, sold the candles. It worked really well. The fans were more than thrilled with it, and that's when I got the idea. I think this could be a standalone brand. And because I've been teaching music marketing also for years, I had students, and I had just delved deeply into e-commerce. And I thought, I'd really love to sink my teeth into a strictly e-commerce business and, just separate from the music altogether. Like I kind of want the challenge of doing this. In fact, I want to know, can I build an audience from the ground up with a standalone product that's kind of technically already a saturated market? Like, who needs another candle brand? Nobody. So let me see if I can do this and see if I can see what happens. So that's the beginning of this whole journey.
I have so many follow up questions, but when I was researching for this interview, I read something that really stood out for me. So, this is a direct quote. Leo ordered candles from several different vendors in her area and assessed how they were doing things. What kind of box did they use? What type of packing tape worked best? Did they write a personalized thank you note? What felt special and what felt blah about each candle? Did they try to upsell? She rated her competitors' products and took note of what she loved. End quote. Tell me about that process. I love that.
Oh yes, that was my, I guess you could call it competitor research or just market research in general. When I was trying to experience, like, somebody please wow me. Like, I want to be wowed. And what I have found was, well, first of all, I'll say I started a binder, right? Where I had a physical notebook where I created almost like a little sheet of form that I would fill out and I would rate everything. What kind of, yeah, shipper box did I get? When I opened it, what happened? What's next? Is it a bunch of packing peanuts that fall out everywhere? Like, so I was taking to consideration so many different things, like the unboxing experience. I was taking into consideration the the logistics of what they were doing to package a heavy breakable product. And then also just the sales and marketing part of it too. I noticed things like when they would put in like a postcard that would have something on it, I found there was such a waste of real estate on there. I was like, there's a whole other side to this, and they didn't put anything on the back. That's a waste of real estate. Or there was some kind of instructions on it, but it looked like a hazard warning sign. I thought, well, that's sending the wrong message visually. So I would just take note. I was just really being extremely observational, not really drawing any conclusions yet, just observing, taking in the data and just noticing my response to all of these things and going, where are the opportunities? And what are people doing really well? And I noticed there were some things I absolutely loved about the really small, like, one owner Etsy shops, for example, the personal touch they put in there. They write you like a handwritten card. And I love that. Some of them put like a candy or something in there. I love the personal touch. And then what wasn't, but then you're looking, oh, that's not scalable. How do you scale that personalization? Right. So all these different things I took into consideration as I built our brand. And I think that people might underestimate the power of doing such an exercise in when you're looking at, competitors and just market research in general.
I have so many follow-up questions. I guess my first question is, it's something that comes up a lot when I speak to different e-commerce founders, and I'm curious, how does one strike that balance between adding that personal touch and wowing the customer, but at the same time understanding that the business will scale and maybe you can't always have that hands-on approach with customers?
So you can do this in multiple ways. And I think that's always a good question to ask is how do we keep this as personal and boutique feeling as we grow and scale, right? And so there's a couple of things. One is there are some personal touches that some businesses just never they've decided we're not going to scale that. It's not scalable, but we're doing it anyway. For example, I know I've received packages from a really big brand, First Form, right? They're a health fitness supplement company. They still, even though they're $1 billion brand, I think they're multi nine figures. They still have someone handwriting, thanks so and so. So they don't scale that. That is there is a physical handwriting. Another thing is personalization in other ways, such as the digital side of things. Now that brings in a whole other thing, right? So, like through Drip and through different online mediums, you can customize and personalize the person's experience online. So that and I feel like there's so much to be done there, and so we, if someone is checking out a product but they don't complete their purchase, we can personalize that experience. If someone has purchased a product, we don't want them to get that promotion again, we can personalize that experience. So there's others. Now that is scalable. So the digital side, anything you can digitize is scalable. Anything that's, physical is not as scalable, but still might have an ROI. So you might want to consider keeping it. So those are the kinds of considerations we're always thinking about.
I want to come back to the digital side later on in the interview, but another question I had here, and this does relate to what we're discussing here. How does Mythology Candles separate itself from other brands? I'm guessing a lot of these personal touches and a lot of those opportunities that you found analyzing competitors is something that really helps the brand stand apart.
Yes. So how do you stand out in a saturated market is a very it's a big thing. So I strategically I wrote pages of notes when I was developing this brand just on how we would do this. And there's so many different components to it. And everything from you know, even just you'd be surprised at just having outstanding customer service. Boom, you stand out. Just having how can you have five-star customer service? So even in a saturated market, people will leave other competitors just to do business with you if you have five-star customer service. So just things like that, not overcomplicating it. So there's that. Then there would be things like how do you wow the customer with the unboxing experience? Now, unboxing, again, there's the physical side and the digital side, right? So there's the physical receiving the package, and we are big on like wowing them with the packaging itself. We want that to be an experience. But then there's the digital side. What are all the follow-up communications they're getting? We send, the Shopify email that tells them their package is going to be there soon. We customize that. There's nothing out of the box that we haven't put our touch on and put our voice on. So there's things like that. And then you have things like the niche itself. So, we've all heard it. If your product is for everybody, it's for nobody, or you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody. And that's really, really key in what we've done. So no, we are very specific. We make products for fantasy nerds. And that's actually our company motto. That's our mission statement is we create happiness for fantasy nerds. So, and whatever products that ends up becoming doesn't really matter. We create happiness for fantasy. So that's very specific and we want to bring joy to people. So when you're really defined that way, that helps immensely for you to stand out. Now we're not in a saturated market all of a sudden. So it's kind of that book, that blue ocean book where you need to get out of the shark infested waters and you need to be the big fish in a smaller pond. And so that's what we became when we decided to have that niche right out of the gate is now we are the big fish in the smaller pond. So that's how you stand out.
It's such a fascinating insight because I feel like the narrative is always around first mover, the big idea, first in a new category. But what I'm hearing here is all those small things along the way that compound that we often take for granted. Like you mentioned, that nothing is out of the box, and customizing it in your voice is something that really helps set the brand apart.
Absolutely. Like we say, when they get their package in the mail, they get an email saying, "Oh my gosh, it's here," because we have a way to track that, right? So, "Oh my gosh, your package is here, go look." And we just it's like a virtual happy dance where we're really celebrating with them and like upping the hype about it. And this is a really exciting thing. Something arrived in mail. So you could just take something that's super mundane and turn it into an experience. And I think that's the goal in every single touch point that we have.
You mentioned customer service, and I'm glad you did because I had this in my notes as well. I'm on the website, over 4,000 five-star reviews. How are you doing this? How are you driving that many reviews?
We ask for them constantly. I mean, we have that automated, right? We have, there's apps out there if you're using Shopify or whatever, that's what we use. And, so we definitely use an app, but also I think people are eager to share their experiences when they are delighted and they are happy. But you have to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So you have to put that out there. And so we do have it automated where they receive their product. And then within a certain amount of time, we allow a little time for them to experience it, then we ask them to give us an honest review. So it's not more complicated than that.
I want to dive into the automations a little bit more a little later on, but I just want to circle back to this interview that I read. And there's something else here that I pulled out of that that I wanted to ask you about. So, this is another direct quote. Because selling online doesn't allow for sniffing, their $20 sample pack sells like hotcakes. Once the customer buys the sample, they move on to purchasing a full size in their favorite scent that virtually eliminates the work of reacquiring customers. I love this. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, I underestimated the power of sample sizes when we launched out of the gate. I knew it had to be a thing because it made sense to me. Buying any kind of fragrance product online is there's going to be some resistance to that. Like, how often does someone buy $100 perfume bottle online without ever smelling it? It feels very risky for the client. So the answer is sample sizes. I always buy little perfume samples. So I just look at my own behavior, like what would remove the resistance for me in that sample size. So yeah, we now have what we call a discovery box where people can load up on anything they want to try up to 9 in one box and then try them and test that. And then afterwards we our system detects that they have purchased that. And then we send them follow-up emails and ask them if they'd like to upgrade to the full size.
I love that. I have so many follow-up questions, but I think what I'll do is I'll transition into the website and some of the marketing that you're doing on site. So one thing that really stood out for me that I love is when you go on the website for the first time, you see this little teaser in the bottom left-hand corner, $5 off your first order. And here you're asking for a mobile number. And typically you would see email. I'm curious, how are you using SMS and email when you're capturing visitor information?
Yeah, so we're definitely trying to build up our SMS list as if anybody's like really in e-commerce, they know that that's a lucrative channel. And it's very different than email and it has to be treated carefully. You have to have some knowledge about it. There's some regulations around it, and but when used properly, can be really powerful. So we find that we get a generally really good open rate and click through rate with that. It's been really helpful. So yeah, we're just trying to incentivize people to sign up for SMS whenever possible. We also have automations that encourage them to sign up as well. So, and the way we use it is yes, we are sending out general promotions if there's like a new drop or something, but the way we're trying to use it is almost like building a VIP list. So people who are our top, most enthusiastic customers. And then we usually drop them like early bird links when there's a new drop. They get 24 hours early access or a few hours early access before the rest of the public and that kind of thing. So we make them feel special, like they get something exclusive. That's generally how we're using it.
Can you talk about some of the workflows that you're using to run the business, such as welcome flows and so on?
Yeah, we generally have number. So we have like a welcome flow, which would almost be like pre-purchase, like people who are just coming to our ecosystem and we're trying to help them fall in love with the brand essentially. And I show my face, I talk about how it began and I show, a picture of my kids and making the beginnings of the story. And then we also have so we have like a pre-purchase, we have a post-purchase sequence where that's a whole other thing. We want to encourage them to buy again. We also want them to become advocates, right? So going from basically stranger to friend to advocate. So a friend who, they've converted and then we want them to eventually even become an affiliate for us. Like, hey, help us spread the word organically. So it in that post-purchase sequence, we're always revamping things. We're always looking at what's working, what could we improve. So we've just even revamped it recently. And from there, again, getting them involved in a community is actually really huge. So one of the first things they get after someone's purchased is join our Facebook group. And we have, I can't remember the latest numbers on a Facebook group. I think I want to say it's well over 10,000, 12,000 people, somewhere around that ballpark of customers and some not customers in there who are just sharing user generated content all day long. look at this product the way, and they have make their little displays and things like that. So those are some of the workflows. We also have abandoned cart, of course. We have a repeat buyer flow that we're working on. So people who have purchased 2 times, people who have purchased 3 times, how do we treat them differently? Because these are people who have really, they spent significantly more with us. We want to treat them really well. So those kinds of things. And we have other flows. We actually have flows every time we set up an opt-in for a new drop because we do new drops almost monthly and we change up the content. There's new people that come into our ecosystem based on the type of drop that it is or the topic of the drop. So we might have like a Lord of the Rings themed candle drop coming, or another one might be Dungeons and Dragons, and those might be different people, not necessarily in the same group. So we put them in a workflow and customize all of that so that that experience is tailored to that micro niche, essentially.
I wanted to ask you about the product drops because you and I talked about this in the pre-interview, and I've been speaking to a few founders on the show lately, and they've been talking about how when they're doing product drops, they're actually leveraging a paid community that is getting early access. And I was curious about, you mentioned community as well. I'm wondering if you've ever thought about doing a paid community or whether there's a level above community.
Yes, we do actually have a paid community, so to speak. It's a membership. And we actually, so there's pros and cons the way we set it up as like our beta version of this. So it's called the Candle Guild. And so it is a paid community. It's like $9 a month, but they get access to exclusive drops. They get some flat rate shipping. There's a private community. We give them exclusive polls. They've even helped us create candles, like, hey, vote on the names, vote on this, that, and the other thing. So it's kind of a next level thing. And it's actually they are that group of people on a separate drip account because we had to set it up on a separate Shopify site, just the way it worked with there isn't a fantastic solution yet for integrating memberships into the same thing. So that's been, that's just part of the stuff you do imperfectly, right? It was better to do it imperfectly than not at all. So we've been experimenting for the last year almost with that. And yeah, it's been great. It's been really, really a great experience. We're learning new things all the time. And eventually the goal is that we can merge the 2 sites into one and have all customer data together and all of that. So like I said, I'm just glad that we've been doing it. And we're definitely, you want to do something cool and special, unique for your very top super fans. And this is the way we found to do it.
It's so interesting, and I feel like not enough people do it. And I'm curious to hear your take on why do you think communities, but especially paid communities, are becoming more popular now?
I think it's probably because for those super fans, people who are really bought into what you're all about, what you do, and the products and all the experience, their own transformation. them want that VIP access. They want more. And I find that it could be to do with the niches, but people kind of want to go on a deeper level. Like they kind of become obsessive about like a thing, right? Whether it's like a TV show or it's, Comic-Con events or whatever the thing is. I find that there's a segment of people that really get obsessed with, so they want the full experience, whatever that is. And so, there's always a segment of people, if you think of concerts and whatever, that buy the VIP tickets, the most expensive thing, the meet and greets. They want to meet the musician. And it doesn't matter how much it costs, $1,000, whatever. They're going to spend it because they want that experience. And there's a small group of people in any audience that wants that. So there's that. And then also, I think people are always looking for connection and they want like-minded people. They're looking for friendship. They're looking for relationship. They're looking for ways to connect with people. So I think that's kind of a universal principle, I think.
It's so interesting coming back to music because I wanted to ask you about this. What are some of the ways that you are bringing your learnings from being a musician into marketing? Because when you were talking then, I was thinking about the band Kiss and how they have multi tiers for their VIP packages when you can go and meet them. And I'm so curious how you're bringing those experiences to the business.
Yeah, it's interesting because it did all start with music for me. And one of the things I discovered as I got into e-commerce, one of my reflections was, wow, it's much harder to sell music and stuff than it is to sell regular e-commerce products. So I feel like if one can learn how to sell music online and actually make a living at it, you can do anything. You could sell anything. You will be successful because, to monetize something that has a very low monetary value in the market currently. Think of how much you get paid for every song stream on Spotify, like 0.0001 or whatever. To make a living in that and make it successful, you can virtually sell anything. Like, learn that skill, that will transfer in a very lucrative way. So, bringing it into the marketing, I think things that I learned, lessons I've learned from being a musician and selling my music online as an independent artist is, there's a certain level of transparency and connection that musicians can make. Some people do it really well. Some people don't do it at all, right? Some musicians try to live behind a wall of mystique. And I think if you're independent, if you don't have huge labels behind you to fund that kind of mystique, where you don't need to really connect with people in that way, then you can do it. If you don't have that kind of backing, that kind of uh, support or um, you know, uh, capital basically to fund that. The other option, which is much better in my opinion, easier, is to make yourself vulnerable to a large degree. So sharing the story, sharing who you are, the allowing yourself to be vulnerable, opening up who you really are to people, they will connect with you so quickly. And it does two things, right? It does what a magnet should do. It attracts the right people and repels the wrong people. So they're either going to click with you or they don't, and that's what you want. And that's the way you stand out in the marketplace. So these are things I learned from selling music online and just being an artist online in this era. So those are just a couple of lessons.
I wanted to ask you as well because I was researching for this episode and I saw you are doing so much. You have the business, you have the music, you have your children, you're homeschooling, if I'm not mistaken. How are you
Yeah.
managing all of this together?
So I get this question a lot, and I'm just starting to really formulate my thoughts better on this because I've just been doing it for many years without a lot of thought. Like, yeah, how am I doing? I feel like, first of all, I'm not superwoman. I really am not. And I would even consider myself a fairly low energy person, believe it or not. I don't have limitless energy. I've dealt with health problems and different things that I've had insomnia at times. And so I really am a human person. But what I've done right, I think, is I've identified tasks that actually move the needle and I get rid of all the busy work. So what it really is I've gotten good at prioritizing tasks that do something that move the needle. And whereas I think that what some other people struggle with is the feeling of being productive when they're not actually being productive on the things. So basically, I don't have time for fluff and busy work. I don't have that time. I am homeschooling 5 kids, always have for the last 17 years. And so it's just always been a part of my life. And so I've had to work everything I've done, the 5 albums I've recorded. This is, the second 7-figure business I've created all from home while homeschooling my kids, most of the time in yoga pants and a messy bun, like you see me right now. That's been my life. And so I don't have time for things that don't matter. I've had to identify what if every minute of my day matters, what's the one thing I could do that would push the ball forward? And I just have to identify that. So you get good at that.
Wow, there's so much there to reflect on. I feel like you have such hyper focus, and that combined with your ability to, like you say, not take time for granted and just act with intention is something that a lot of entrepreneurs could definitely bring to the table.
And yet I struggle with, you know, I would probably say, ADHD. I'm highly distracted too. So don't think that I have some superpower focus. It has my determination for a result has overcome all the things that could potentially set me back. So I struggle with distraction. I struggle with shiny object syndrome. I do get sidetracked and go on rabbit trails that maybe I shouldn't. That happens to everybody, but it's a matter of like coming back to, oh yeah, what am I trying to accomplish again? Right. So just having that real deep why and coming back to it, it's got to be so motivating that nothing can stop you.
Well, we're soon coming to the end of the interview, and one question I wanted to ask you was, can you share any exciting plans or projects that you have in the works for Mythology Candles in the near future?
Oh goodness gracious. I mean, I actually just think that candles is the beginning. That's just the beginning stepping stone product. I could honestly see so many different offshoots of the mythology universe in general. I could see anybody who knows me knows I have a thing about castles. I have this thing. I want to go to every castle in the world if I could. I just love exploring them. I love the history. I love the folklore, the mythology behind it sometimes, and just like the areas and the travel part of it and everything. So I could totally see having some kind of in person mythology experience. Maybe it's Airbnb or some kind of I don't know. I wish there could be like a 365-day a year a Renaissance fair or something like that where I don't know, my brain just goes into so many different places. I can see other products. I can see so many different avenues, like a publishing division. I mean, I have a whole page of things I want to do. I could see a mythology wine or something. I mean, it's really endless. So that's the other thing is it's really important to keep vision and to keep thinking big beyond just the day to day, which I'm very much in. I'm very much in the day to day in the business, but also keeping and get your head above the clouds once in a while to think what's next, what's the next bigger thing, and what's the path from here to there. So that's actually I'm spending a lot of time thinking about that now.
I think that's a great place to start bringing this conversation to a close. Where can our listeners go to learn more about Mythology Candles?
Well, they can go to mythologycandles.com. That's mythology with an IE. I guess spelled it the French Canadian way because I am actually a Canadian. Mythologycandles.com. I also have an Instagram and a Facebook page. It's Leah McHenry. Instagram, you'll find it real Leah McHenry. So it's LeahMChenry. And I talk about business, I talk about homeschooling, I talk about a lot more of this kind of more personal stuff and help try to motivate other entrepreneurs if I can.
Perfect. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes. And Leah, I've just really enjoyed this conversation. It's been really inspiring to hear your story. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us, and all the best in the future with Mythology Candles.
Thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful to your listeners.
Thanks, Leah.
All right.